Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of the Shannara Chronicles. A great premiere. It's kind of, I like what they did. It's like they picked up directly after season one's finale, how it literally ended off, and then skipped a year. What's actually surprised about the whole reveal, it's like you have Eretria being like, oh, whoa, it's you, and then it's like, oh, who is it? Is it someone new? It's like, no, it's not someone we know. It's this dude named Coughlin, who's apparently someone she knew years ago. Apparently, whatever circumstances, we don't know what happened, but somehow he ended up losing her. So, because what we learned from Eretria last season about her whole upbringing, it's like some people just couldn't wait to give her to Cephalo, so it's like maybe they knew who Eretria was because they knew people Coughlin and his people were trying to track her down or whatever. But it seems like he's an old friend of her mom, that her mom asked him to look after her, and for the past 20 years he wasn't able to do that, but now he's been given that opportunity again. So it's like she thought Will and Amberly would come get her, but a year passes and she's been with the group and everything, which is kind of interesting to me. It's actually super sad because she ends up seeing Amberly after that whole confrontation with the trolls, which is obviously Eretria is still skilled as badass as she's always been. I just love how good she is with a knife, throwing it, just taking people down, especially what she did with the first troll. I was like, oh, okay. And then, but she ended up getting knocked into the water, and then Amberly coming to her and be like, you gotta find Will, greater evil out there. But the sad thing is she doesn't know about Amberly. I guess where they are, the fact that they're near the Golden Gate Bridge makes me think they are relatively close to where to Safehold. I don't know if they're directly at Safehold, but they're close enough at the very least. Dressed as trolls, which then kind of crosses my mind to be like, I guess they showed up after all those other trolls and everything. Maybe the ones that Will and Amberly saw in season one's finale, when they ended up having to sadly leave Eretria behind. Granted, it was her choice, but maybe the ones they saw going in, that was actually Coughlin and his group dressed as trolls and stuff like that. Maybe not. Nevertheless, but she didn't know about Amberly. Like I said, I guess just the word couldn't get that far. But after her sacrifice, so because in her mind she's like, oh yeah, probably Will and Amberly are at Allanon and just living it up, having fun. But it's like, nope. Will is off in a different village, becoming the healer he set out to at the beginning of season one, working with gnomes and stuff like that. But it's he has problems. We see the aftermath of what season one did. Losing Amberly kind of destroyed him because his hand won't stop shaking. It's hard for him to focus, and he's just remembering everything. It seems like what he's tried to do is run as far away from it as possible because he's basically kind of abandoned his destiny. Because even one of the gnomes was like, okay, why are you here? With what you've done, you saved the world. You have a greater destiny. He's like, no, magic comes with a price, and it's a price he's not willing to pay because magic ended up costing him Amberly. And and the sad thing is he uses his stones and it kind of leaves marks on his arms, at the price for using it. But he uses it just to create an illusion of Amberly, just to feel something. And it's just and it also seems like he spends most of his time drinking. And I guess, in all honesty, I didn't even think about it while I was watching the episode, but it's actually very reflective of the situation with Will's dad. Obviously we never got to see it, but we heard from Will's dad last season, he kept talking about the fact that his dad was a drunk. He never understood why. And it's well, it's a similar thing. It didn't take the same toll. Magic didn't take the same toll on him like it did his dad, his dad's mind, but it took the same toll on him because he lost so much, He couldn't find Eretria because we ended up finding out later on about that. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about it. The fact of the matter is Coughlin's been lying to him, lying to Eretria, because Will actually came looking for her. Because I was in that year, Will never went back. What? I thought season one finale, I was like, what went on? Did something happen? It's no, he went to find her, but Coughlin kept leading him astray every time. Nope, leading him down a different path, saying she's not here or whatever. So in his defense, he's like, hey, the fact is he knows what Will is. He knows that Will is the Shannara, which then begs the question. He knows everything that went down, but he didn't tell Eretria. Is going to be, I guess, up to her to kind of find out for herself about Amberly. But because for him to know that Will is the Shannara, last son of the Shannara at the very least. Oh, I guess like it's like very well spread that like, oh yeah, like he helped save the world and everything. So there's that aspect, which I'll kind of dive into a little bit. But that was his main reason, because it's like if you go with the Shannara, like there's nothing but trouble and death that way. Like, you know, and he's like, I failed you before, I'm not going to fail you again. So it wasn't something malicious. It was just kind of like his need to protect her. But it's like, you lied to me. This is my choice. It might be dangerous, but don't take that choice away from me. Because when you actually think about it, I mean, that's the biggest insult you could give to Eretria, because Eretria lived her entire life not having a choice. And she ends up talking to her new GF, Lyria, about, you know, Will. Will was the first person that saw her past just being a rover, that there was good in her, whether she was willing to see it or not, you know? So, which also brought up the conversation, are you in love with Will? She's like, his heart was always Amberly's. It's like, you didn't answer the question, which is like, there's still something there, but it's still like, you know, she's like, I used to, but it's still like, Will is someone she cares about just like Amberly is, you know? I mean, maybe there's a little bit more there. I mean, and it's something, because it's interesting enough, I never actually got to talk about it, because by the time I started this podcast back in last year, when I started this podcast, I only covered like either the second to last. I definitely covered the finale. I think the season finale might have been the only episode I covered, and I was kind of shitty at this whole podcast thing then. Like, just my approach, I feel like is very different now than now. That's really getting all into it and stuff like that. But it's always like, it's interesting when you break down Will's character being the half elf, half, you know, human, and caught between two women, which he loves Amberly, but there is still a part of him that will always care about Eretria, you know. He wouldn't go through all the trouble to try and track her down, but nevertheless, in this past year, apparently there's a group known as the Crimson, led by a guy named Riga, who apparently is killing like magic users, which is a really cool thing about this season too, is like magic is a lot more widespread, interestingly enough. It seems like, because like, I'm sure a lot of people were low key about their magic use, but magic wasn't really like apparent enough last season, because it's like, oh, people use magic, like, oh, Allanon using magic or Will using magic. It was such a rare thing, and now it's like, oh, they're magic users and they're being persecuted, because Riga's like blaming them for like the Dagnamore rising and stuff like that. In particular, Will is like, oh, it's their fault. What are you talking about? They were the only line of defense. Like, maybe they have ulterior motives, but they're trying to switch the narrative to make them look like bad guys, because Will is actually being hunted. There's a bounty on his head and stuff like that. It's like, why are you going to hunt down the hero? Not unless Will did some stuff in that year time or not. I don't know, but he's, you know, he's a hero, but he's being hunted, which I don't understand. But it seems, like I said, like magic is more pronounced to the fact is that there are magic users out there. So either they were hidden, or maybe something in this year happened where magic became a lot more accessible. Like I said, maybe it's just the fact is that these are people from different lands who found their way here, because I mean, maybe people made their way to Arbalon after the whole demon attack, because there's so many villages that were destroyed. You have Ander having trouble kind of keeping up with everything, because it's like, well, like, you know, there's like so many people who are displaced. They need their villages rebuilt, but they can't because there's not enough money. And even like Slimer was kind of telling them, it's like, they're not actually going to help you, the other races, because they'd rather see the elves burn, because, you know, the elves are kind of frowned down upon. It. Like, you're kind of the uptight, run amok, you act like you're better than everyone else. So every other race pretty much hates the elves anyway. So there's that. But I'm very interested to learn about this group that hunts down magic users and stuff like that. Like I said, it might stem from like bad experience with one particular magic user, and maybe this has something to do with Bandon, who's kind of stepped up and become essentially the next Dagnamore, corrupted druid, and apparently he's trying to resurrect the Warlock Lord, which is kind of interesting because the Dagnamore, he never really brought it up last season what he was trying to do. So maybe his ultimate goal was to kind of get rid of, like, trying to stop anything that would seal him and the others back up. But I mean, it seems like the demons are kind of their own thing. Like everything related to the Elcrees in the last season, that's its own thing. It seems like the Warlock Lord is kind of another thing all in itself. But Bandon's trying to resurrect him. He's got his own like followers who all become like demons after drinking his blood, that was pretty crazy. Like you know, unlocking his heart and then getting it pumping again, and blood's coming out, and they're drinking that blood, and it turns them into the monsters that they are. In particular, that one main dude who's got like snake eyes now. That's a whole thing. And then finally, obviously, him and Allanon fighting, which It's kind of, I mean, it's kind of ultimately what this is supposed to be like. This is Allanon trying to clean up his mess because it's something that Bandon kind of gets on him about. The fact of the matter is, it's like, you manipulated and you used me. You tossed me to the Dagnamore, and now I am the way I am. Just the same, you lie and you use people. Just like you sacrifice Amberly for the sake of the Elcrees. And what about Will? Did you tell them? Did you even let them get a choice in the matter? So... But it's Allanon trying to make up for what he did. He's like, I made that mistake, but I have to, fix it, because it's like he's going down that path. And it's so interesting because that's so interesting. I mean, it seems like he's not going to be main tier bad guy, but at very least for most of the series, at least this season, it seems like he's going to be the main one. Obviously, this is leading to resurrecting the Warlock Lord, but still, they got his heart. Next is his skull, which is like why he sends them after Will, because he thinks, looking at the Warlock blade talks to him and kind of tells him like, hey, you gotta go find the Shannara. He's connected to it. So then on the other side of things, you have Will himself, meeting up with the lady. The actress's name, I'm going to butcher her name. I think it's like Malaysi, I would say. Maybe I probably like Malaysi Zhao. I'm sure I'm butchering her name. I do apologize. She's been in so much stuff. I think the last thing I saw her in was probably playing Anna on the Vampire Diaries. If you're unfamiliar, like her, she was a vampire. Her and Jeremy dated for a while. She became a ghost, and that kind of messed with the whole Bonnie and Jeremy thing. That's just a whole thing all in itself. If you never watched Vampire Diaries, that means absolutely nothing to you. But yeah, I think that's like the first thing I might have ever seen her in. I feel like I've seen her in other stuff too, but I just can't quite place what I know her from. But she's been in stuff, and nevertheless, she randomly pops up, which I really appreciate the fact that she shows up like, oh man, like, I'm so hurt. And you could tell she was trying to get Will's attention initially, but it kind of took me by surprise when she ended up healing herself too. Which is kind of something I'll quickly interject with, because that was something I was wondering through my mind. Because Will's a Shannara and everything, he needs the elf stones to access his magic. I guess they're more like I guess what's the proper word? He needs something to channel his magic through, essentially. Like the elf stone isn't just, well, maybe it comes from the fact is that Will's only half elf or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think that matters, because ultimately I think his Shannara blood should be enough. So maybe they act as a way to channel his power through, like, this is kind of like a weeby reference. Just using an example, if you're familiar with Yu Yu Hakusho, Kuwabara for the longest time would use like a small piece of wood to channel like his sword through, because that was just the easiest way. Eventually learn how to do it on his own. Essentially, I'm trying to say maybe eventually Will learn how to not rely on the elf stones for magic, because no one else really does, because Bandit doesn't, and nor does Allanon. It seems like this lady, who we end up finding out, interestingly enough, is Allanon's daughter. For whatever reason, I was literally thinking that for some reason. I don't know what made me think that. I don't know. I was thinking like, oh, could she be like Allanon's daughter or something? I don't know why that random. Like, I'm not trying to give myself credit. It's just something randomly popped in my head. Don't know why. I have not looked up anything for the season 2. That's what's weird. Like, I remember seeing some stuff here and there. Maybe because it's something I read, because I do remember reading articles talking about the new cast members and stuff like that a long while back, because I was trying to figure out when the Shannara Chronicles was supposed to be coming back. Because I think at the time, it wasn't apparent that it would be airing on Spike and everything. That's just like going well beyond like I really need to, but it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know why that was like creeping into my head. So it was like, it wasn't that much of like, oh, which I mean, I guess it still makes sense, because there was like the whole like him and Pyrea situation that took place like years ago. Makes you wonder, did something happen between him and Pyrea for like not unless she's just someone else he fell in love with. I mean, Allanon is very old, so, but I think the last person he fell in love with was Pyrea, so not unless she had kids and no one knew, because remember, like, the king ended up banishing her because she would not get over Allanon, so sadly, we all remember how her story ends, sadly. So I don't know whether that's the situation or whether it's someone else entirely. Hell, for all we know, she could be lying too. So either way, I mean, it would make sense why she could use magic the way she does, because not only was she able to heal herself, she was also able to create an illusion of Will to kind of distract the enemy. So that was just kind of interesting. So like I said, it kind of all tails into the fact of like, I wonder will Will learn how to like use magic without relying on the elf stones, because it still does seem like it drains him. I mean, but to be fair, when he was healing himself, that is probably a combination of using magic plus it taking its toll on him, plus also the fact is he was super drunk at the time, so kind of trying to drink his troubles away. Once again, making a comparison between him and his father. So, and since I brought up Bandon earlier, I quickly want to bring up something else too. I wonder what role Catania is going to play in this, because when he was talking to Allanon earlier, he kind of blamed it as oh, you turned Catania against me, which is you kind of did that to yourself. But then ultimately it's once again, it's a byproduct of Allanon doing what he did, ended up leading to Bandon becoming he ended up inadvertently ended up creating the next Dagnamor essentially with Bandon. So I'm curious, is she supposed to be in a role of trying to help him? Will he pull her over to his side? What would that, whole situation be? I'm curious what they have in store for her and him in particular this season. Is there any way of pulling him back before it's too late, or is he forever lost? Because the whole first season was about him battling the darkness, but now it's he's completely submitted to it, so... Which it makes you wonder, was that always the Dagnamor's plan to do that? Because he kind of exists beyond the Dagnamor. So once again, bringing up, was that always the Dagnamor's ultimate plan, was to bring back the Warlock Lord, and now that mission's passed on abandoned because he's been swallowed up by the darkness, or is it just kind of a byproduct? The Dagnamor was just trying to use him, but it's I inadvertently created the next villain, so I still win, something like that. I don't know. And also the top question going into the season: is there any way to reverse the Elcrease situation, or is Amberly lost forever? As Elcrease, because it seems like she's able to reach out to Eretria, but, has she ever tried reaching out to Will, or has Will just thought it was part of his delusions, that he, him missing her so much that he's thinking he's seeing her and stuff like that? I don't know. That was just, because Eretria herself did mention that her and Amberly do have a connection. Like I said, I'm curious, will they be able to find a way to make it so that she doesn't have to be the Elcrease anymore? Could they bring her back? And if they did bring her back, would it be a situation of she wouldn't fully be herself? Would she be a blank slate again, or something like that? Maybe our memories gone or something I don't know. I'm very interested to see what goes down this season. Like I said, a great season premiere. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.